Hello. Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy The Dinner Party by Olivia Julius and Lacey Race.
The dinner party. I heard a knock on my door. I checked my watch and sighed. Mason was always early, and today it seems that it was no exception. I opened the door expecting to see Mason standing in front of me. Instead, there was a little girl who was wearing pink t-shirt and blue jeans. She was also holding a bag full of clothes. I looked down at her, and she smiled up at me. "Can I help you?" I asked. The little girl darted into my house, and I turned and watched her roam around my living room looking up at everything. I closed my front door, and the little girl turned to face me. "John," she said, smiling. "It's me, Mason." I blinked in confusion, trying to reconcile the little girl in front of me with the image of Mason. "Mason? Are you playing a prank or something?" I asked, still bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. She shook her head, her eyes wide and innocent. "No, really, it's me, Mason. I used the lab's body modification device to make me look like this. I hope you don't mind, but I used some of your DNA to do this. I need to look like I'm your daughter after all." I looked at her weirdly. I did see some of my own features in the girl. I rubbed my temples, trying to make sense of the situation. "Mason, this is insane. Using my DNA without my consent? And posing as my daughter?" Mason looked at me with a pleading expression. "John, I know it's a lot to take in, but we're running out of time. Tony Reed is a key investor, and we need him on board to save the lab. The body modification device was our last resort, and I have a plan. I need your support on this." I sighed, torn between the ethical dilemma and the urgency of the situation. "All right, but we need to be careful. If anyone finds out about this, it could not only jeopardize our chances with Tony but also lead to serious consequences for both of us. Let's get through this dinner party smoothly, and then we'll figure out how to undo this mess." Mason smiled up at me and then picked up the bag of clothes that he came in with. "So, I was able to grab my daughter's old flower girl dress," he said, holding up the clothes, "and then my wife and I were able to make a quick shopping trip to Walmart, so I now have everything I need get ready for the dinner. I just need to borrow your bathroom." I motioned to the bathroom door, and Mason hurriedly walked to the bathroom and went inside with the clothes in his hands. Mason then emerged from the bathroom a short while later, now dressed in a pink flower girl dress, with white tights and a pair of white Mary Jane's dress shoes. The transformation was uncanny, and it took me a moment to adjust to the sight of my friend turning into a little girl. "Do you like?" Mason asked to give me a slight curtsy. I nodded, still trying to wrap my head around the situation. "It suits you, Mason," I said with a forced smile. "Now, let's focus on the plan for tonight. Remember, you're my daughter, so act natural, but be cautious. We can't afford any slip-ups." Mason nodded eagerly, her eyes reflecting determination. "Got it, Dad," she said, emphasizing the word dad with a hint of mischief. It was a strange sight, seeing my friend transformed into this young girl, but I had to admit, Mason was playing the part surprisingly well. "By the way, call me Allison. Calling me Mason might raise some unwanted questions." "Fine, Allison," I said, testing out the name. "Allison it is," I replied, adjusting to the new name. "Let's make sure we're both in character for tonight. Remember, you are my daughter visiting from out of town. Keep the conversation light and friendly, but don't reveal too much." Allison nodded, her expression serious now. "I've got it, Dad. I'll stick to the script." She straightened her dress, looking remarkably composed for someone in such an unusual situation. As we made our way to the car, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The plan felt risky, and the consequences of being caught could be dire. But we were desperate to secure Tony Reed's investment for the lab, and this was our last shot. Arriving at the restaurant, Mason's, now Allison's, plan was finally making sense in my head. I could see on the other side of the parking lot Mr. Reed getting out of his car. Next to him was a girl Allison's age. I looked down at Allison, who smiled up at me with a huge "I told you so" smile. As we walked to Mr. Reed, Allison clung to my hand, her demeanor shifting seamlessly to that of a shy young girl. I squeezed Allison's hand reassuringly as we approached Tony Reed and his daughter. "That's Sarah, Mr. Reed's daughter. She's part of the plan. If I can become friends with her, then we will have better odds at getting the funding we need." I nodded my head and kept walking towards Mr. Reed and his daughter, holding Allison's hand as we went. Mr. Reed greeted us warmly, and I introduced Allison as my daughter visiting from out of town. Allison smiled sweetly, batting her eyelashes in a convincing display of innocence. Throughout the evening, Allison charmed everyone with her bubbly personality and impeccable manners. She chatted effortlessly with Mr. Reed's daughter, forming an instant connection that seemed genuine. Meanwhile, I engaged in conversation with Mr. Reed, subtly steering it towards the topic of our lab's groundbreaking research. As dinner progressed, I noticed Mr. Reed's interest peaking whenever I mentioned the potential applications of our technology. It seemed like our plan was working, and I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the tension. However, just as dessert was being served, I caught a glimpse of someone familiar entering the restaurant. It was Dr. Richards, one of our colleagues from the lab. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the danger his presence posed. If he recognized Mason, or worse, if he discovered the truth about Allison's disguise, our entire plan could unravel. I discreetly nudged Allison under the table, signaling her to remain calm and composed. She nodded subtly, her expression betraying a hint of anxiety. We needed to get through the rest of the evening without any slip-ups. As the evening drew to a close, Mr. Reed seemed thoroughly impressed by our presentation and expressed keen interest in further discussions. My heart soared with relief as we bid him and his daughter farewell, promising to follow up soon. Once we were safely back in the car, Allison let out a sigh of relief, her shoulders slumping with exhaustion. "That was intense," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "You did amazing, Allison. I couldn't have asked for a better daughter," I said, smiling warmly at her. Allison grinned back at me, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Thanks, Dad. But I can't wait to change back to myself," she said, her voice tinged with anticipation. I nodded in agreement, feeling the weight of the evening's events finally catching up to me. "Let's get back to the lab and figure out how to reverse the transformation. We've earned ourselves a celebration," I said, determination firm in my voice. With that, we drove back to the lab, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, Mason Ellison and I had navigated through one of the most bizarre and risky situations of our lives. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was for sure: we were in it together.